everyone. Welcome to Facebook Live with Flow Living. I'm Alisa Vitti, the founder of Flow Living, the world's first modern hormone healthcare center. And we come to you every week to talk about the things that help us feel better and live smarter in our beautiful, unique female bodies. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about how to deal with perimenopause. You ladies have been asking me to talk more about that subject, and how do you think through perimenopause? How can you deal with it more without symptoms? And I wanted to deliver that to you today. So welcome. Of course, as you're joining in, let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you're someone who's dealing with perimenopause symptoms. So what is perimenopause? For those of you who are tuning in, we're going to be talking about all things perimenopause today. If you're 35 or older, this Facebook Live is for you because perimenopause begins at 35. And it's not something that we talk about often. We just think that perimenopause refers to the time kind of right when your period is ending. But that's not actually the case. Perimenopause, just like puberty, actually begins in the brain around anywhere. The pituitary gland can wake up in a young child anywhere between, 9 and 10, right? And then we start to see puberty happen physically. But it always happens in the brain first. So very similarly, perimenopause is a very similar situation. It's just the opposite. Instead of the pituitary gland getting stimulated to start making the levels of FSH that will allow for ovulation to happen monthly, perimenopause is the process that has changes to the pituitary gland to raise FSH levels so slowly over the course of like a decade that you eventually stop ovulating, and then you'll eventually have your very last period, which is called menopause. The very first period is called menarche, and the very last period is called menopause. And then after you have your very last period, which by the way, you can only certify after 1 year with no bleeds, then you can consider yourself postmenopausal. So you would never say that you're in menopause. You would either say you're premenopausal or perimenopausal or postmenopausal. But there's this 1 year period where you don't know which one you are, although you have a good hunch as the months continue to ratchet up. And that is how it works. So I wanted to talk today about how to take this transition period, how to navigate this transition period, whether you're in stage 1 of perimenopause, which I'll talk about in a minute, how to know which stage you're in. But if you're 35 to 45, we'll consider you stage 1. Or if you're stage 2, 45 to 55. So that's really, how to navigate, how to know where you're at. All right, let me see who's here since we're saying hello before I dive into all the juicy content. And I'm just noticing how curly my hair is today. Sorry, it's a little wet. I washed it last night, but then when you sleep on curly hair, it just sometimes it works out, and other times I woke up today with a curl that was just not cooperating, and the only thing you can do is a full shower reset. So that's what had to happen this morning. So if it looks a little wet, that's why. But it's also so curly, which means to me it's either going to rain or spring is around the corner. My hair is like a weather barometer. It's kind of a fun little added perk. So let me see who's here. Martina from Ireland. All the barricades are out for this St. Patrick's Day parade here in New York City this weekend. So happy St. Patrick's Day. Hello, Rebecca from Kentucky. Hey, Leslie from Williams Lake, Canada. Caroline is from, I'm going to get it right this time, Quebec. Rachel in Washington State. Sarah, hey Sarah, welcome. Welcome. Martha from Colombia. Okay. So for those of you, hey Heidi from Minneapolis. Alexandra from Florida. I love doing this round robin because that's the cool thing about what we do at Flow Living. We're really taking care of women everywhere. I love this. I have to say, this just happened last week, and I'm I'm still like really receiving the vibes from this. But last weekend, you might have remembered that was International Women's Day. And there are oftentimes on International Women's Day all these articles that go around about people celebrating women, and you know, it's wonderful, and I always look forward to that. This year, for the first time, someone, specifically Arianna Huffington, wrote a piece about 12 female entrepreneurs changing the world, and they put me on the list. And, you know, like, it was really overwhelming because, you know, people on the list were like the founder of 23andMe and other really, you know, cool women doing really cool things, and all sorts of other amazing projects and other endeavors that other women were having. But I was really honored to be added because what they said about the company was that we were the first and only modern menstrual health care platform in the world, which is exactly right. And that's more important than me being on that list, was that story about what Flow Living is doing as a very historic business. Nothing like this has ever been attempted before, to try to serve women's hormones around the world. And I know we still have a lot of work to do, is in existence for the first time in human history. And that's something that's really that is what has been motivating me for 20 years to solve for this major problem that we have in women's healthcare. You know, you go to the gynecologist and you have a problem, they kind of send you home without a lot of support. Maybe some medication, maybe nothing. Like, we'll see you next year, good luck. And that's just unacceptable. Or, you know, it's the 21st century. People can do the most unbelievable laparoscopic surgical procedures, and we deserve more. We deserve better with our health care, and I've dedicated my entire career to trying to solve that issue, and I'm doing my very best. So thank you all for all of your support and all of your feedback of what we could do better, more, what new products and things, services and programs you want. I am always listening. In fact, every single thing I've ever created has been as a response to your needs. So think of me as your partner in your healthcare journey. That's what we're here. That's the whole mission. So anyway, it was a big honor. It's never happened before. I've never been on one of those lists, not as an entrepreneur, you know, in this way, doing something that's affecting women worldwide. And I am really trying to like grow into that space, you know? So anyway, that's a little aside. You know, whenever I get on these lives with you ladies, I never know what I'm going to say. So it's fun. It's all very in the flow. Okay, so let's dig in to perimenopause. Looks good on ya. I just think that's what I want to start with, that there's nothing to fear about perimenopause. You know, I've worked with so many women over the years where they get really anxious about perimenopause, like the expectation, and of course this makes sense, right? The expectation is that you're going to suffer, that it's going to be problematic, that it's going to be rife with hot flashes and night sweats and vaginal dryness and crankiness and weight gain and hair loss and mustache growth and, you know, all the stereotypical things. And what I want to say is that the reason why you think that is part of the continuum of the cultural narrative that says your period is going to be a terrible experience, and therefore so is everything about women's health, women's health journey, including perimenopause, and of course your postmenopausal years. Now you're all dried up, forget it, you're an old lady. I mean, you see what I'm saying? It's just never, it's all the same narrative. It's all the same arc of that story, which is that you're cursed. So I just want you to recognize that if you are running a script that sounds like perimenopause is bad, it doesn't come from you. It's not your actual thought or opinion. It's something that you've been programmed and conditioned to think is true, but it's totally not true. Perimenopause is a beautiful journey and it's really about the pituitary gland and the ovary getting into a different rhythm. So think about it this way. puberty is the process of allowing your second clock to be added to the mix to your first clock, right? Everybody's born with a 24-hour circadian rhythm. But then at puberty, your brain, your pituitary gland, and your ovaries get the second clock in motion. And now on a top of your 24-hour clock, you get to have your 28-day clock. Perimenopause is the very extremely slow, super slow unwinding of that second clock. And it can take, to your question, LaTanya, anywhere from 10 to 20 years for that to happen, right? So it takes that long because the slower that it takes, the less symptomatic you will be, right? The longer, the slower it goes, the less, right? As opposed to if all of a sudden, and those of you who've had a child, if you remember those first few weeks postpartum when all of your hormones start to drop off pretty, like all the estrogen and progesterone are really leaving your system very quickly. You may remember lots of sweating and night sweats and hot flushes, right? Postpartum. That's what happens when hormonal changes happen really fast. When it goes nice and slow, you don't feel those symptoms. So we actually do want it to be stretched out as long as possible. And just last year, and we did write a whole blog on this because it was such groundbreaking research, because there isn't enough research being done, of course, for women's health. But just to remind you, if you missed it, they found that you can actually delay the onset of your very last bleed or even the start of perimenopause by changing your diet and incorporating things like salmon and lentils 3 times a week will slow this process down even more. So some of you are asking question, Mireille, you're 43, your period is late, 34 days, first time of your life, is it perimenopause? Yep, absolutely. You can, so let's break down what this is all about. I just wanted to say that there's nothing to fear. This is a normal process. It takes 10 to 20 years to complete, depending on your genetics and your lifestyle. And that the most important thing is that symptoms are not inevitable. Symptoms are not part of the deal, not extreme ones. Of course, you're going to have some symptoms, right? Because it's your body's changing, but the where it's like you're in the living hell of hot flashes, that can be avoided. Absolutely. So that is important to know, because I think again the cultural story is that it's a nightmare of an experience. So let's start breaking down the different phases, and then we'll go into kind of the strategy that I want you to be thinking about around this. So like I said, perimenopause has 2 stages. Stage 1 is 35 to 45. Now this is an average. Some of you were talking about how, for example, Mireille, you're skipping a period at 43. I'm going to explain to you how to think about where you're at and how to think about your mother and other women in your family to understand how your perimenopause experience might go. And we'll also break down what other factors are contributing to your perimenopause journey, because a lot of them you can change and then change your perimenopause, right? So phase 1, stage 1, 35 to 45. So this is really where you're not going to see too much activity, right? You're going to notice subtle changes. You're still going to be cycling fairly monthly with the occasional skipping of a period depending on your genetic predisposition. So for example, I had a client whose mother entered her postmenopausal years at 45. Like her perimenopause was really quick, really early, a couple years, and then by like 45, 47, I can't remember exactly, she was all done. So this client of mine, she recognized that she should expect that early, and also her older sister went through the similar kind of early process. So they all wrapped up their perimenopause before they they wrapped it up between basically 35 and 48, so that a shorter window, right? But the average last bleed to expect for all women on the big average is cited at about 52, somewhere between 52 and 55. So just know that that's the average, but some women, but again, based on pre-existing genetic disposition, you can actually experience that earlier. So just ask, have a conversation with your mom, your grandmom if she's around, your sisters, your aunts on the maternal side and the paternal side as well, and just see what the deal is, right? Get some background information about what you can expect with your perimenopausal journey, how quickly it might go. But on average, that first stage is 35 to 45. There's not much symptom-wise you should experience. If you take care of yourself the way I'm going to suggest, you can really sail through this decade without many changes. You will notice, of course, that you're aging in different ways. Your skin might change in density, volume, collagen production. You may notice that there's, depending on if you're raising young children or teenagers, that stress might be impacting your sex drive. But from a cyclical point of view, you should still be ovulating and menstruating with that monthly pattern that you've had all throughout your reproductive years. So there's that. Metabolism should be good. Maintaining lean muscle mass, all of that should still be an easy, effortless process. If any of these things are, if you're going through the checklist like, no, my period's weird, I'm having intense PMS, worse than ever before, I'm breaking out with adult acne, my sex drive is gone, I'm gaining weight, something is vaginal. If you're having a lot of symptoms between the age of 35 and 45, then that's not perimenopause. That's a hormone imbalance that you need to get on top of, and I'll tell you how to do that. So don't throw these symptoms away and say, oh, I'm just supposed to have all these symptoms. No, you're supposed to feel good. Really. So if you're having symptoms, it's time to take action, and it's the sooner the better. And the sooner the better, because how your hormones are going into your postmenopausal years really sets you up for health and disease prevention in those postmenopausal years. So it's really important to take your hormones seriously. Okay, stage 2 of perimenopause is, let's say, the 45 to 55 category. Again, leaving room for all the fluctuations of when your last period might be. This is the phase where, biochemically what's happening is FSH levels are now rising to the point where it's making it difficult for ovulation to happen. In stage 1, they're rising, but just a little bit, very little bit at a time, right? You could still get pregnant in stage 1. You still ovulate pretty regularly in stage 1, but in stage 2, the levels start to creep up past 15, 16, they're starting to get higher. FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. So the higher those numbers are, the less frequently you're going to ovulate. And when they get to a certain threshold, a much higher number, then ovulation stops, and that's the end of perimenopause, and you're now in your postmenopausal phase of life. So during this phase, while this is a very epic thing for your body to do, if you've taken care of yourself in stage 1, you can have a really relatively smooth sailing during this transition, 45 to 55. But oftentimes, because we're not taking care of ourselves in stage 1, because hello, I don't know about you, but I'm in stage 1 and life's really busy. I've got a young kid, I've got a business, I've got a life. It's busy, right? It's easy to find the stresses of life in stage 1 don't get addressed, right? And they start to take a toll on your body. And then in stage 2 of perimenopause, the symptoms can really hit the fan, so to speak, right? You can really start to have all the symptoms that you've been worried about in spades. So that's why I always want to talk about perimenopause in 2 stages, because how you do the first stage really sets you up for the second stage. Now, if you are over 45 and you're watching and you're like, oh, I'm in stage 2 and everything is bad, of course there are things you can do. Hold your horses. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But yes, you want to take immediate action, because the symptoms that you're having in stage 2, if they're extreme, like constant hot flashes. I remember working with a client who she was having, 6 or 7 episodes of hot flashes a day. It's very disruptive. It's like a power surge. Your body gets hot. You start to sweat. It's a mess. Your makeup runs. It's like you have to clean up afterwards. You can't think straight for the 15 minutes that it's happening. It's a lot. And, by modifying diet and adding in supplements and herbs, they went away, and she's down to like one night sweat every other day, which is not so bad, right? And that's reasonable to have some of that happen, because again, the body is shifting with estrogen and progesterone as well, which is going to cause some temperature changes from time to time. But you don't have to have the huge, like taking over your life situation in stage 2 if you know what you're doing and you know how to get the support that you need. And that's why we're here today. So let's talk about the strategies that really work for all the stages. And before I get into the strategies, I just want to talk about quickly environmental factors that make either stage much, much worse. And of course, this is the same stuff that makes your period problems worse in your reproductive years. So this is nothing new if you've been listening to me before. Environmental toxins and stress, right? Those two things will disrupt your endocrine system just at a very foundational level. So you won't have a fighting chance, to even be in a position where stage 1 is going to work well, because you're actually already in the hormonal imbalance hole, right? You got to get yourself out of that. You've got to really commit to greening your beauty products and your cleaning products and going organic with your food. Reducing any chemical exposure you can at any point in your life is such a value add to your overall health and well-being, from your hormone system to your immune system to your brain health. It's so critical. I know it's expensive, but thank goodness like places like Trader Joe's makes it so much more affordable. And of course, if you're living in Europe, this is even less of an issue, because they've banned all the bad chemicals that they still use here in the United States. So you have it much easier to buy just food that's like it's all organic for the most part in Europe. So, and yes, Anya, I'm glad you're listening at 33, because 35 is around the corner, and knowing how to think about this is so important, right? Because what do you do? What are you supposed to know? It's not like we're having this conversation because, we're not having what you're supposed to do and what you're supposed to know, when you get your period. So it's like the same stuff, different stage of life. But the second factor that I think is a little bit more unique leading up to perimenopause is the stress, because, puberty, you're a kid, how stressful is it? Typically, if you're lucky and you're, living in a good environment, you're not going under a lot of stress, although there are plenty of teens that are experiencing a lot of stress, and guess what? It disrupts their period pretty dramatically. So, but for the most part, let's assume you had a relatively stress-free childhood. Puberty, not so stressful. You don't have that stress as an endocrine disruptor kind of undermining what's supposed to be happening naturally in the body at that time. But 25 to 35, you're now an adult. Everything's like the real deal, right? You're working, you might be starting a family, you might have multiple children, you might be stressing out about not finding a partner and having children. There's a lot of stress. Your parents might be aging, money, living situation. I mean, it's like a lot, it's a lot. Adulthood's a lot. And depending on how you're navigating that, can really set you up for stage 1 problems, right? If you do too much drinking in your, 25 to 35, or too much living on caffeine and stress to get through all of the things of life like that. So it's really important to just assess honestly with yourself. You don't have to tell me, you don't have to tell anybody else, but like, how much did you, burn out the candle, so to speak, 25 to 35 or 35 to 45? Did you really push your body so hard that now you need to do a little nurturing? And that's important to recognize. But yes, that is a different factor leading up into perimenopause than I would say puberty, because it's pretty universal that everybody is going to find something stressful in the decade of 25 to 35, and then again 35 to 45, right? There's just a lot going on in one's life. It's the in Ayurveda they call this the pitta time of life, the hot time, the fire time, where you're building things, you're building the fire of your life, you're really growing, right? And you've come out of the kapha stage. This is again Ayurvedic medicine, where it's like childhood, it's like slower, cooler. It's like mud, and you're forming yourself like clay, and then the fire, you're burning all the things, you're burning your energy, and then you move into your older years where you're in your vata. So it's just an interesting thing. So just to recognize how hot has that fire been burning, because it's gonna dictate how weak your system is to go through all of this and how much nurturing you need. So let's go into that nurturing. Okay, what do? How do you set yourself up for success? Well, if you've been following me and you're younger and you're in your 25 to 35 reproductive height of your reproductive years, then good news. If you're eating according to your cycle, tracking your symptoms, taking your supplements, working out the right way, 35 to 45 is going to be a breeze for you. Okay? That's so far my experience. And it's really about aligning with your hormones. Now, if you're 35 to 45 and you're noticing some symptoms and you want to or you're 45 to 55 and you would like to figure out what to do, it's really important to begin your practice of phase-based eating. So eating the foods that are appropriate for each phase of your cycle really do help your hormone system overall manage its process better. What does your hormone system have to do? Just why do we have to help it? One, it has to make all your hormones, and it has to break them down and get them out of your body on a continuous basis so that there's no buildup of estrogen, etc., or testosterone, or things that could start causing symptoms. So if you were eating in certain ways at certain times, like for example, Tracy, I'll talk about the anxiety stuff too. That's definitely a factor as to the progesterone shifts and the estrogen shifts. So we'll talk about anxiety in a minute. But eating this way, eating specific foods for each phase of your cycle, so helpful for flushing out estrogen, supporting the production of progesterone. These are critical things that start to, down-regulate, okay, meaning your body's going to be making less and less of estrogen and progesterone as you move through perimenopause. So in order to support that process, you got to eat the right stuff so that it goes slow and you're not, like for example, if all of a sudden estrogen and progesterone really start to drop precipitously or very quickly, then you could start getting a lot of anxiety. But if you're eating foods that help with those hormone production levels, then you don't have as much anxiety, right? Because your brain chemistry is completely affected by your hormone levels. So that's really important. Of course, it'll help prevent the adult acne or bloating or weight gain. It's so it benefits absolutely every symptom. And I think it's so important. Some of you are talking about seed cycling. I would say you want to really expand beyond that. That can be helpful, but you've got to really think about all the foods you're eating and eating according to your phases. So there's that. The second strategy is really about protecting your adrenals. And one of the key ways you can protect your adrenals from stress, because that cortisol hormone can really screw with your perimenopause journey. Why? Because when you are constantly being flooded with, stress, or you're experiencing stress and the body secretes cortisol to try to calm you down, eventually you run out of the ability to make this. And there's a hormone called pregnenolone, which is like the mother hormone, and your body will start to favor the production of cortisol over the production of progesterone. And guess what? As soon as you start not having enough progesterone in relation to estrogen, guess what kind of symptoms you're going to have? Hot flashes, night sweats, weight gain, irritability, anxiety, insomnia. It's a mess. So you really want to protect your adrenals as a second step. And how you can do that are two things. One, you got to exercise right for the phase that you're in. If you push your metabolism the wrong way during the second half of your cycle, meaning you're in your PMS week or your bleeding week and you're going to a boot camp class, you're going to create a situation where the body is going to start secreting cortisol, and then you've got problems, right? So you've got to learn, and if you download the MyFlow Tracker, MyFLO tracker.com, you'll know which phase you're in, and it'll tell you which workouts to do. So you don't even have to figure it out with me now. My app will tell you which workouts to do, and you can just click it and schedule it into your calendar. If your cycle is irregular and you're in stage 2, right, where your cycle is supposed to become less and less frequent, right? That is the whole point of stage 2. You should expect your period to be skipping, right? What you want to do is, because you know what it feels like, right? You know if you're in the first half of your cycle or the second half. You know if you're kind of like, God, I just need to get my period, right? Like this is how women have described it to me. It's like they get their period, they feel good, they go through the first half of their cycle, then they're kind of in this long, drawn out luteal phase, and you kind of have a lot of symptoms with that. So what I would recommend that you do is eat for that phase until the bleed shows up, then eat for the bleed, and then switch your cycle. So just assume that you're still in this one longer phase. Anya's bringing up a great point. You can also start tracking your basal body temperature so that you can know precisely if you've ovulated, if you haven't, what to expect, right? And I really recommend the Daisy app for that, because it's a cute little, looks like a little circular thing with a little stick, and you insert that into your mouth in the morning. It takes your resting basal body temperature and it keeps it on a nice chart in their app for you. And a lot of women use the Daisy app with the MyFlow app, because all Daisy does is track your BBT, and it's a really nice way to help you get some data in real time each and every day as to what's happening, where you are in your cycle, when your cycle starts to, in stage 2, become longer between cycles. And that's normal. That's what should happen. So that means, from an exercise point of view, that you're going to keep your workouts to about 30 minutes, and you're going to focus on strength training and not cardio. And guess what? All the research shows that as we age as women, the thing that actually keeps us metabolically optimal, meaning we're building lean muscle mass and burning fat, is not cardio when we age, it's strength training. So that could be things like a Pilates class or weightlifting. And I think it's really important that what you're actually doing is honoring the fact that in the second stage of perimenopause, you will find yourself in these prolonged luteal phases. That is normal, what should be happening. Sometimes you'll be in a prolonged pre-ovulatory phase because ovulation isn't happening. That's a different thing. Then during that time, you'd want to eat more light foods and do more cardio that phase, but you've got to know where you are in your cycle, and you can track with your BBT what's going on, which is really fun. So I think that's really great. Let me see what's going on. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna address your question, Inga, because I think a lot of women are going through fertility treatments during both stage 1 and stage 2 of perimenopause. So I will talk about that in a second. So that's strategy number 2. Okay, really protect your adrenals, because if your cortisol levels are haywire, you will feel really intense symptoms. Oh, and I didn't mention the second thing. So one is doing the right workouts, and the second thing is, believe it or not, you got to start some sort of meditation practice. I mean, I have avoided, I gotta say, I've always loved and appreciated meditation, but I'm a type A person. I really like to be like, go, go, go. I definitely have more of an adrenaline response to life, where I'm like, oh, let's get up and start the day. Lots to do. Not great, turns out, all that adrenaline. And just 6 weeks of a meditation practice actually changes your brain chemistry, can improve your cortisol levels dramatically, very quickly, very good for anxiety, really changes your brain structure in 6 weeks. I mean, the research is, I got nothing to say except I got to really start meditating, and so do you. So that's something new that I'm doing in my stage 1, perimenopause journey, is I'm going to be really adding, as a way to protect my adrenals, a short morning meditation practice. And I might also add an evening one, because I struggle at night sometimes with winding down. So I'm going to use that tool because I like things that are scientifically based, and this now, having done all this research on it, is undeniably a good thing to do. And it doesn't have to be, it's not a spiritual thing. It's just really where you're just calming the mind. You can use all sorts of apps. There's so many meditation apps and biofeedback tools. it's a good thing. So if you've never considered it before, we can all take that journey together, those of us who are in our stage 1. Certainly good if you're in stage 2 as well, but really great to protect your adrenals. Really great, very well documented. Okay, the last strategy, and then I'll talk about some specific strategies for this is a long one. Oh my goodness, the time flies. I want to talk about, heavy periods, fertility struggles. What if you have PMS, PMDD, anxiety, depression, irritability, weight gain, low sex drive? I'm going to kind of go through a lot of the symptoms. But let me just give you this last strategy to really help you navigate perimenopause. Again, whichever stage you're in, is you've got to manage and maximize your micronutrients. There's a reason why we have one physical product, and it's the supplement kit, because this hormone balancing supplement kit, because in 20 years of doing this work, these micronutrients are needed for your endocrine system, period. So if you haven't checked out the Flow Living supplements, just go to flowliving.com, click on the top navigation where it says supplements, and you'll see what's available. But you do need women, especially when you're about to start, right? Again, from all that stress, either stage 1 or stage 2, you need to boost your B vitamins, all of them, because you need that B6. B6 helps with progesterone production. B12 helps with energy and metabolism. All the Bs protect your thyroid and your adrenals. They do so many things. So you need a good B complex. I wouldn't leave home without one on a daily basis. You need magnesium. Magnesium actually supports the production of follicular stimulating hormone. And luteinizing hormone and thyroid stimulating hormone. So magnesium, these hormones signal the other glands in the endocrine system to do their job. So important to take magnesium. Your liver, you need something that's going to support your liver. And I came up with a formula called Detox that actually feeds the liver some of the key micronutrients it needs in order for the liver to detox your hormones, right? Your estrogen levels especially. And your liver needs to be like fully stocked. So you need things like vitamin C, selenium, glutathione, alpha lipoic acid, all these types of things. So there's that. Probiotics. You have something in your gut called the estrobolome. It is responsible for helping in the manufacturing of estrogen and also breaking it down. It also helps in the conversation with your brain. And this whole gut health, the gut-brain axis, if you're struggling with depression, anxiety, irritability, probiotics. Seems like a small thing, but major pharmaceutical companies are planning for a very near future where we live, and they've given it this term, a post-antibiotic era of medicine, where instead of giving antibiotics, they give bacteria instead. They introduce specific strains of bacteria to the body during a critical time to help the body's immune system do its job, because antibiotics are no longer working for people because we've all developed resistance to them. So this is the future. If you haven't gotten on the probiotic bandwagon, now is the time. Omega-3 and D3 is another critical micronutrient that you need. Both of these will help with all sorts of the symptoms of perimenopause, from the flashes, the sweats, the mood, breast health. It's all will help with metabolism, stabilizing blood sugar. You got to have it. These are non-negotiable, right? So if I put these supplements together because I need them, you need them. If you have ovaries, you need these micronutrients. There's no getting around it. You need them. Now, so those are the three. I guess there's 4 strategies, like eliminating the toxins and dealing with the stress. But the 3 strategies that are really key is eating cyclically, protecting your adrenals with the right exercise at the right time, and adding in some meditation, and maximizing your micronutrients with taking supplements. You gotta do it. Can't get away with it. I know people in the space who are trying to live to 100, or even Suzanne Summers, who's frankly an unsung hero in the women's wellness conversation. You know, she takes like 50 to 100 different supplements a day, right? Because the research really is compelling about micronutrient therapy in terms of health, preventing disease, and longevity. So a lot of people, I mean, I don't take that many, but you know, if I had good enough reason to take a whole bunch of supplements, you bet that I would. Right now, these are the ones that I am taking, and so that's what I love. Okay, so let's talk about specific strategies and some ways that you can get support right now. So if you're struggling in either stage with, you know, heavy, painful periods, right, then Vitex is actually something that you can take. It's an herb, also known as chasteberry. Can be very helpful to support ovulation and progesterone levels. So this is something that you can take safely. It's one of the oldest recorded women's herbs that we have. So it's been in use for at least 1,000 years and very, very safe and helpful. Also for PMS and PMDD, Vitex is also shown to have benefits there as well. One study actually showed that Vitex outperformed Prozac for dealing with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So if you're someone who's struggling with anxiety, right, especially for the week leading up to your bleed, this has a progesterone issue, the progesterone deficiency issue, and you can take it, you know, starting right after ovulation through the start of your bleed. You can do it that way. But you can also take Vitex every day, and it will help with the overall cycle. So you don't have to just take it. It's not like putting on progesterone cream where you only have to take it for a certain window of time. You can take Vitex daily, and in fact, the longer you take it, the better the effect that it has. Fertility challenges. So I want to talk about two things here. If you're going through fertility challenges, you want to be very gentle with yourself. You want to take a lot of supplements when you can, but you also want to be in a situation where you recognize it is going to have some impact on your perimenopause experience for sure. Okay? All right. CoQ10, another key one in improving fertility. Vitex will help, and of course all the supplements that we talked about. Depression, irritability, anxiety. That I love for perimenopause. I love maca. Maca powder. We have a whole blog on maca, which type to take, how much to take, how to use it. Go to Flow Living and in the blog section, search in the search bar maca, and you'll get all the information on that. There's studies that show it improves depression, and it improves cognitive function, concentration, can improve your sex drive, your metabolism. It's a great superfood to introduce during the perimenopause experience. Maca shouldn't cause heart racing, but you know, I've heard that more with, but some people are sensitive to adaptogens. So you may notice like you're feeling energized, you may register that as heart racing, but it may be just that your body is now actually working properly, or it could be that that adaptogen is not working for you. You might want to try something a little bit more gentle to deal with your anxiety, like ashwagandha, which is another great adaptogen to help with anxiety and low energy. But you can also look to even something more gentle, which would be the mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms like reishi and all of that. Matcha is very different, Tracy, than maca. Maca is a root, matcha is a tea, right? The green tea, and that has caffeine. Now, if you want to learn more about whether it's safe for you to drink caffeine or not, you got to read the caffeine blog, because there's a gene variation that determines whether or not you can safely consume caffeine. I cannot, for example, I have that variation, so you still might want to get the GC from the green tea plant, but you might want to take it in the supplement that has no caffeine as opposed to drinking the caffeine. It just depends on your needs. Let's talk about weight gain during perimenopause. So I want to say two things about it. Yeah, let's do it. That's a great idea. Anya, let's do a Facebook Live on adaptogens. I will. I love that idea. Let's do it. Okay, you're welcome, Tracy. So weight gain. First of all, stage 1, you shouldn't have a lot of weight gain. Stage 2, you might have some, and that's protecting your bones. As your body makes less estrogen as you stop ovulating, ovulation and the hormones that are all produced around the ovulation is actually something that protects your heart and your bone density and your brain health. So when we stop ovulating, the body needs to compensate, and it does that by adding a little bit of weight onto your skeleton to add load to your bones so that your bones stay strong. But this is also why it's so critical for you to strength train more. You'll notice that in stage 2, you'll be doing a lot more strength training than you'll be doing cardio, right? And that's a good thing. Now, of course, you'll walk and things like that, but I'm talking about like that high intensity kind of stuff. You'll be doing less of that and more gentle cardio to keep your heart healthy, but you'll be doing a lot more strength training, which is what your bones need to stay strong and flexible and all of that as you age. So some of the weight is important, but I'm not talking more than 5 pounds, right? We're not talking about gaining 20 pounds. So if weight is an issue, turns out alpha lipoic acid has really been shown to keep blood sugar stable and insulin levels balanced. So it helps with weight loss. It also helps guard against bone density loss, and it supports the liver. And it helps the body get rid of excess estrogen. So I love alpha lipoic acid. It's in the detox supplement. I love it so much. Okay, dull skin and hair can happen, especially in stage 2, as estrogen leaves. Estrogen is the thing. I mean, you've seen it in like teenage girls. My niece is 10, and I'm starting to see it in her now, like just the rising estrogen and what it's doing to her complexion in terms of like her cheeks are always just like this rosy color, and her hair is like shiny like a horse's tail. You know, it's magical what estrogen can do. And when estrogen starts to recede, you'll see it on the skin, you'll see it on the hair. Some of that is normal. Luckily, we have lots of really hydrating creams. I love Naturopathica for aging, dealing with aging skin. I think they just have it on lock for that. Really nourishing botanicals and plant stem cells, and I love it. I actually just started using about a month ago their argan plant stem cell, like all over face cream and under eye cream, and I love it. I can really feel like it's beneficial. So that's great. And you want to change up your hair care products. Underneath my styling product, I use Rawa curling cream. It's like made with a special nut from the rainforest. It's just that oil. It's like really thick cream, and I put that on my hair, and I love that. So you got to change things up a little bit, but in addition to the external stuff, you got to really hydrate with essential fatty acids internally, and that's where a lot of omega-3s are key. So really, really good. Low sex drive, maca I've mentioned, stress and anxiety, ashwagandha, holy basil. Marae, for you, if you're really sensitive and feeling a lot of like anxiety and physical symptoms, holy basil is a really great herb that's very calming on the adrenal system. It can be really helpful. Coming off birth control, trying to conceive, in stage 1, you've got to really nourish yourself. There's several steps I mentioned on this week's blog. You'll see there's a link to how to kind of navigate that. There's so much to talk about here. Thyroid issues, avoid your endocrine disruptive chemicals. I just got notification that they have added some chlorine to the bath water in our building. So we're about to put in a shower filter to filter out the chlorine, because that's very disruptive to the thyroid. So, you just have to kind of make some adjustments to take care of yourself, right? Because it's not easy for our hormones in our environment is so endocrine disruptive. I think it's so important. Now, Inga is asking a question about, I'm not sure if you're asking about bioidentical hormones, topical, oral. I don't want to get into that today, but what I will say is that in my experience, working with clients and seeing women go through this transition, that if you take care of yourself in stage 1 and stage 2, you really can avoid having to use synthetic hormones, whether they be bioidentical or truly synthetic, to level you out, to make perimenopause easier. And there's a reason why you want to avoid them, because let's say you have a history of cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer in your family. Those are things that, you know, might not be safe for you to take, right? If you pick up any bioidentical hormone cream off the shelf at Whole Foods, it has a warning. This has been implicated in potentially making cancer problems worse, right? So it's nice to know that you can actually go through perimenopause without having to use this. But when does a person need to take synthetic, oral hormone replacement or use bioidentical creams? Well, oftentimes it's because they haven't removed environmental factors, they haven't changed their diet or lifestyle, their stress levels are through the roof, and they're really between a rock and a hard place. Like, you really can get to a place with your symptoms where you can't take it for another minute. You're truly suffering. You can't get through your day. You're sweating. You're miserable. You're irritable. Like and I appreciate what that feels like, because PCOS, ironically, is an odd perimenopausal kind of experience, but just in your teenage years. So I really can appreciate what it feels like to have your hormones be so out of whack that they disrupt your whole life. That is a real thing. It's not in your head. And when it gets to that point, you are desperate, okay? And you feel like you got to take things. And you might have to. You might have to. That might be the reality that you're dealing with, because you're out of, because see, of all the strategies that I've talked to you about, I think what I'm hoping you're hearing, that I haven't said it outright, but let me say it now, the biggest support you can give yourself is time. Doing these things for longer periods of time, starting in your 20s to prepare for stage 1, and then in stage 1, really upping your self-care to prepare for stage 2, and then in stage 2, upping your self-care to prepare for postmenopausal life. That's the secret. The secret is giving yourself the time to be healthy and live healthy for a long, long time. So I hope that you can navigate through your perimenopause. That was my intention today, to support you, having all the tools that you need and the strategies to think about how do you get through the whole 20-year journey without having to rely on medication. Because right now the common conversation, just so you know, that you would hear potentially at your gynecologist, because I've been working with a woman now, I think she's 45, if I remember correctly, or about to be 45. Her gynecologist has suggested to her that she just stay on birth control until she's about 50. But studies show that that's not a good thing to do. But that is a synthetic hormone replacement, right? So technically, what's the harm? It's not good. Your body still has to go through this process. And then on top of it, staying on those synthetic hormones really depletes your whole system of all these micronutrients that you're already deficient in the first place. It's totally illogical to do that. So just know that that's the common conversation, is let's medicate you all the way through, right? Gynecologists will say, let's keep you on the pill to the last possible minute. And then a psychiatrist will say, let's put you on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications for the rest of your life. And then when you're postmenopausal, because you've never been ovulating because you've been on the pill your whole life and you've not protected your bones, let's inject you with like Boniva. It just never ends. The medication never ends. And you've got to decide whether you're going to get on that train or get off that train. But you got to do that you got to really get involved with your own health, with food, with lifestyle changes. It's not just like you got to do it. You got to do the work. I do the work. You got to do the work. Amanda's asking a question. You're turning 35 and you're having insomnia for about 1 week of the month right before your period, I would imagine. Yeah. Could you be in perimenopause? Yeah, you're 35 and up, you're in perimenopause. But this insomnia is more of a factor of, you probably need a little progesterone support. So taking a B6 would be really helpful, maybe taking a little Vitex. But it's not like all of a sudden your period's going to stop. If you didn't listen to the beginning, go back and listen to the beginning. You've got a long way to go. But insomnia is a symptom of a hormone imbalance, not a symptom of perimenopause. Different, okay? So, lots of information today. Yes, we feel like we've learned a lot. Should I shut off the fire hose? So much going on. I think it's important to know that there's a lot to come, and that, you know, there's a lot that you can do. I know you guys have a lot of questions. We are at the end of our time today, so ask the questions and we'll follow up with some answers on the chat. But for those of you who are like recognizing that you're needing some support, you need to do some cleanup with your diet, you need to get activated around supplements and changing your food and changing your workouts, or you recognize that you're dealing with a hormonal imbalance, I really encourage you to do Monthly Flow. Monthly Flow is our premier hormone balancing program that you do virtually. And it's going to take you through all the steps of the flow protocol that are going to stabilize your blood sugar, nurture your adrenals, support estrogen detoxification, teach you how to do the cycle syncing method, and really give you the full support. And it's me teaching the classes, so it'll be a lot of me talking through the video to you about all that you need to learn. Anya did it and love it. It really helps set you up for success. It's the foundation. So if you want to take advantage of that, we have a perimenopause bonus package. If you purchase Monthly Flow in the next 48 hours, you're going to get 3 bonuses. You're going to get my 4-day hormone detox to help flush that excess estrogen, reduce some hot flashes and mood swings like immediately. That's a $50 value. You're going to be getting my personal home medicine cabinet guide. Really, really valuable, because you want to stop using products that are, chemical laden and things. This is a $30 value. And then you're going to get a masterclass of Optimize Your Sexy Flow. Okay, this is about how do you navigate sex drive and energy and mood how do you optimize them during perimenopause. There's so much to learn. So this is another class that's just a deeper dive into those particular subjects for perimenopause. That's also a $30 value. So you're getting, let me do some quick math, $130 worth of products for your purchase of Monthly Flow, which is a really great value. So I would really encourage you, if you're dealing with perimenopause right now and you've recognized during the course of this chat that you need to get your butt in gear around taking care of your ovaries, Monthly Flow is the best place to start first. So all you have to do is email your receipt to support@flowliving, and I'll just type that in here so you have it. And they will instantly email you all the bonuses. They're all digital, so wherever you live, you can have access to them. And that's, of course, one of the things we do by design, is to make sure that wherever you are around the world, we can help you with your hormonal journey. So I had so much fun talking about this today. I hope that, you're excited about your perimenopause journey, that you're ready to take some action and take care of yourself, and that you've learned a lot today. And please share it with a friend who you know is 35 and older, who's going through perimenopause and might need this education too, because every woman needs it. We're just not having this conversation enough in our culture. So please do share with a friend, tag a friend in the comments so they can come and watch the video. And please leave a comment, rate the Facebook page. I really appreciate all your positive, supportive comments. They really do help. And I will see you next week for another juicy topic on how to live, feel better, and live smarter in your beautiful female body. Until then, take really good care of your ovaries. Bye.